Great. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
We'll just wait till a few more people join and then we'll get started at 9:15 sharp.
Maybe just to support this, Alex, of course, we're talking about digital fashion today, which is new for some and a little less new for others. But of course, it would be amazing if you guys out there would give a shout out in the chat, your name or company, maybe a small status on where you are at with digital fashion, because we know some, but we don't know everything. So it would be awesome if we could get this network going as well.
Okay, 9:15, ready to go. My name is Alex. I'm just quickly gonna say some words before we get started. Natalie over here, I don't know where she's placed in your screens, I guess. She's waving, is gonna be facilitating the conversation today. And we have Shirin, Dide, and Christina as our speakers. All three of them are digital fashion designers with experience in the traditional fashion industry. So we're gonna talk a lot about introducing digital fashion and kind of kickstarting the basics of traditional fashion design versus 3D fashion design. What are the challenges and possibilities we see here? And this is part of a 3-day series. In case you haven't signed up for the other 2 days, we recommend and go ahead. There's also going to be a talk tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. And the whole series is dedicated to introducing you to digital fashion and kind of getting that inspiration going and that understanding for what is going on here in the scene, what are the conversations about. And we'll be recording the sessions, so we will share that afterwards. So you can always come back to it. Further, there will be a LinkedIn group, which we will also share with you, that you can join to keep the conversation going. And I don't want to say too many more things and take up the time. We want to have a 45-minute session, so short and sweet for the morning coffee, breakfast vibe. And I'm going to hand over to Natalie. One last thing, actually, before I forget. Please, if you have any questions, there's going to be time for questions in the end. Write your questions in the chat and we will be collecting them there and bringing them into the conversation. So let's go.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alex. So let's give a warm welcome to Shirin, Christina, and Dide. It's a pleasure that you want to spend the free, or at least this morning with us, sharing your knowledge and experience with 3D. I think we should have a short introduction round because maybe you don't know the three speakers today. So maybe Sharon, would you say something a little about yourself and how do you explain digital fashion to your friends and family?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for having me. Very excited about this panel discussion and see what the other two have been working on. I'm Shireen. I work as an independent digital fashion designer for more than 3 years now. I first used 3D in fashion in 2011, I think. So about 10 years now. It's very, very interesting to observe all the developments, how they have happened. I started my career also almost directly with using it at Adidas, where I stayed for several years. also working in traditional fashion processes, but then also being part of the initiative in the bigger project to bring digital creation to life. Part of the digitalization, which a lot of companies are heavily investing in, working on changing their processes and using the tools. Then the last 3 years I've been freelancing. Also looking at how companies can transform their processes, help them to visualize products in communication, but also creating digital fashion designs. So that's a bit of a separate area. I think somebody mentioned it already at the beginning. One is a bit 3D and changing processes, and the other one is having digital fashion, which are pieces that only exist digitally or can only exist digitally. And when my friends ask me what I do, coming back to your question after a long talk, sorry.
No, it's good to hear.
Often they don't get it. So the question is, what do I do with it? So then I tend to sometimes have a monologue like I did now. So I'm going to try to make it short and spicy. But it's basically a new form of dressing and adoring your digital identity. If you think about a lot of people, I think out of 10 people orders fashion just to create pictures for social and then send the pieces back, which often then can't be resold because of certain regulations or because something was damaged. I mean, that's one way where you are enabled to then try out something new, potentially also something that looks unreal and a bit away from something that could be realistic, but at the same time be more sustainable. And I mean, we all have a lot of digital identities if we're aware of it or not. Any social media gives you the opportunity to have a digital identity, and digital fashion can sit on that.
Thank you so much, Sharon. We will get back to you very shortly. Christina, you are working as a freelance 3D fashion specialist, and you are the founder of 3DKN. Yeah. How do you explain digital fashion to your friends and family?
Yeah, I mean, so I think as Shirin said, like I kind of can agree with that. A lot of people still don't get it. When you say I'm working in 3D, they're like, yeah, but what you do in 3D? And I'm saying, okay, I design clothes in 3D and digital models and some environments and for showcase and design. But I think the best way for me to explain 3D is when I say that I do design for manufacturing, because that's, I think, the most interesting part for people. Because one thing is using, and I divided like that. I divided 3D as a beautiful image that you can use for e-commerce or marketing or to showcase your brand and make some cool animation and video. And another part is design for manufacturing, where you can actually cut down a lot of processes and you don't need to have too many Pro Tools or salesman samples in the companies. And I think that's the best way that I can describe, and the shortest way, so to say.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about what you do for a living? What is 3DKN?
Yeah, exactly, definitely. So before I opened 3DKN, which was only a few months ago, so I'm quite new into this, but it's still very interesting for me. I was working in fast fashion company, I like to say, which is a bestseller, for 4 years. And this is where I got introduced with 3D for the first time. However, today 3D is a company that provides services to different brands I like to split it in categories, kind of. I call it categories. So showcase and design with design to manufacturing. And I'm making digital models according to standard measurements and the looks that brands need. And I'm giving 3D flow training and some consultations regarding implementation in 3D in the companies. I think that's the short.
Yeah, that was very good. Thank you so much, Christina. So then we have Ditte. You are a 3D fashion supervisor, and you have founded Vonoa. Can you tell us why you decided to go into 3D within fashion?
Yeah. I'm actually educated as a buyer, so looking back at some of the jobs I had handling samples and doing a lot of the stuff that 3D actually can help compromise, I thought it was brilliant the first time I got an introduction to it, and could see a lot of good things in it. So that's really why I think it's interesting. And also because in the beginning I was kind of having the question on how can we sell more without producing anymore because of the sustainable aspect, and because we are not able to handle any more clothes. And I think digital fashion is really exciting within this area, that we can be able to sell in a different way that doesn't have to be physical samples or physical clothing in all. Yeah,
that's a really good point. And how do you explain digital fashion to your friends and family? Do they understand what you do, or is it kind of similar to what Christina and Sherry says?
It's really similar to Christina and Sharon. It's very difficult to explain. So it's more about how it creates the value for the companies, that we can do these things, that we can have a more play around with it when it's 3D. So often I kind of just show them what we have done, because that explains a lot more than trying to explain it. So yeah.
Thank you so much. I think it's a good idea as well to just show and tell instead of, that's much easier sometimes. Today, the topic is how 3D is transforming the fashion industry, seen from a design perspective. And Sharon, maybe can you say a few words about how 3D is transforming the traditional fashion industry?
Sorry, I think
no worries.
Yeah, of course. I think it's just a tool that gives you new language and also different level of speed. So what I really love about designing in 3D is that I can visualize something directly and on the body, and I can see it from 360 degrees, which, I mean, I'm not sure if you're pointing at the traditional fashion processes or digital fashion with your question, but looking at traditional fashion processes, I think what that increases is also just having a language that everyone understands. People have different backgrounds in bigger teams especially, and a flat sketch can much more easily be misinterpreted than something that is on the body and has a sort of realistic look. And at the same time, from design, I'm just much faster and I'm not wasting any materials while I'm trying things. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I don't know, Christina or Dita, do you have something to elaborate on, or do you have some other thoughts on it?
I have one that I would like to add.
Yeah.
I totally agree with Shireen. That's exactly like maybe one of the best ways to use it is, like, I call it digital fitting, technically, because you can see the way it's going to fit and the way it's going to look before you receive a prototype. That's one thing for sure. And another thing is for designers to understand better also construction of the garments and waste and also consumption, because you have possibility to calculate consumption, you have possibility to see how much of the fabric you're going to use, and also wastage. So if you want to be a little bit picky now as a brand and be like, save some money on that part, then you can calculate everything from the beginning. You have control technically of everything from the start.
Very good point. Control. Good. Did you have a comment on it?
Yeah, I have one. I think one other way, then I think the language and the data is really good points in this, but I also think that we're going to see that we are kind of skipping a B2B, that it's going to be much more B2C, and we're going to have contact with our end users very quick and very fast and have a better language to them. So I think it's really exciting what it's going to do with the traditional kind of way of selling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting to see if more people or more organizations will follow the way and try to implement more 3D. Also, as you said before, it can be a good way to sell more but produce less, and that's a great point to state here. Didi, can you maybe name a few cases where brands have found value in 3D and how?
I think some of the first cases that we saw was something like Carling's that really showcased how it can be used. It was not something that they earned a lot on, but they had a lot of attention on it and had a good branding experience from it. Otherwise, it's more small companies, as I see, who use digital fashion, seeing through platforms as DressX. It's often not really known physical clothing who's using this. It's more upcoming, which also is a great opportunity for new designers to showcase quite fast and quite easy some of their designs before maybe making it physical.
And what about some of your own cases? Because you've been doing work for Stine Goya and Hummel. What kind of value has it added to their business?
I think the cases we have had that has added the most value is the cases we have done with Vila, where you actually kind of train the customers for this to come. For the event we did, they had same materials as they have used before that the customers knows. They have same silhouettes as the customers knows, and I think that was part of the success in this event was that it was not something all new. It was only the print and the color that was new, but not the fabric and the silhouettes that was well known with the customers. Where some of the things we did with Stine Goya was more to have some fun with it and have some attention with it. It was not that strategical made.
Thank you so much, Didi. Christina, do you have a few cases that you think of?
Yeah, I have actually one recent case that I think it was really, really good. I created some jacket. It was outdoor jacket. It was very detailed and technical for one of the customers. And when I send the rendered images, like a 3D image, then they can judge 3D image and make changes on spot. So she was like, oh, okay, this wasn't good. I want to change some colors. I want to change this and that. And then I went back and I sent, and she said, okay, perfect. I can approve this now. And she said herself, this is amazing that in reality, I will have to ask suppliers to make a proto for this sample. And since it's technical, it will take weeks before I get it. And then I have to return back and say, can you send me again to make different trimmings and details? So and instead, it's matters of hours doing those kind of things. And for me, that's the best thing when people see value themselves. So I don't have to talk too much about that.
Great point. Shirin, do you have a case as well that you want to highlight?
Yeah, sure. I can actually think of many, but with regards to maybe also physical production, I'm trying to differentiate because otherwise I get confused. I remember at Adidas we had a case also where there was a marathon event, and the design team was thinking of different options. So what they actually did was to visualize just different colors and graphics as well, and post them on social media and have the community vote. So that's also something that I think Dita mentioned before, going a bit from B2B, maybe also to B2C, or just involving the consumers earlier and include their feedback and desires, which is also enabling them maybe to go produce more to the market. And another example, also for physical one, was maybe the campaign that Burberry released last year with Kendall Jenner, I think it was, for the new monogram. So it was also in the midst of the pandemic, so not really possible to have physical meetings and photo shoots. So what they did is actually that they had a body scan of her and just visualized an entire campaign, an entire video in 3D showcasing the new pieces, but also the opportunity to showcase something in an environment that maybe didn't really exist. And also they created a game along the new monogram piece, which creates simply added value that would not exist in the physical part. So those two examples.
Yeah, very good examples. Thank you. So this leads to my next question. So Christina, maybe you can answer the question. What kind of new business opportunities does 3D enable?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Dita already mentioned the company DressX, which gave me a really good idea, because this is maybe one of ideas how you can use 3D in very different way, because they're selling digital assets. So nothing is physical there. So you can buy garment digitally and try it on, and you own it kind of like as a digital asset. So I think that's one of the good example. But another way how I believe can be even more useful if when you use this design to manufacturing, which means that you can change the infrastructure of fashion, which is, I believe, much bigger deal, because again, we're going back to that design process and how you can have full control over everything that you're doing. You can make decisions earlier, and you can also kind of have control over supply chain as well, because designing from 3D gives you an access to so many other things that you can own, and you can be more transparent from the beginning. So if you want to start up a new brand, for instance, you can start in a totally different way than how people are doing nowadays. And that's, for me, maybe the best thing about this new business solution.
Thank you so much, Christina. Dita or Sharon, do you have some thoughts on it as well? What do you see as new business opportunities with 3D?
Yeah, maybe also for digital fashion. I mean, what's happening at the moment is that a lot of platforms are also looking at what services they can offer to consumers with digital only pieces. I actually could release one of my designs end of last year, and I was super surprised with the attention it got and the interest in it. That was very nice for me to see the opportunities that I have to sell my digital designs. And it was also very inspiring to see what can I provide, what experiences can I give to customers together with that company. The Dematerialized is the name of the platform. And we actually enabled consumers to view images and videos of the a bit abstract looking design, I'm gonna call it, because that's also one thing, maybe not business wise, but from a designer's perspective, like I love that I'm not bound to physical limits in the digital world. Like when I design, I can create something abstract that wouldn't normally exist. And to me, that gives me just much more room to try out things and go crazy, basically. Coming back to that example, so we also enabled consumers then to look at the piece in virtual reality as well as augmented reality. So you could have my design walk in your room, for example, and the opportunity to bring it into a game and dress your avatar with that piece. So that's an area that I think will grow a lot. It's almost like a separate business, as I personally see it, for gaming, for any digital identities you want to dress. And yeah, looking at the future, the more we're going to have technology also incorporated in our bodies, be that through augmented reality glasses, contact lenses, or at some point under the skin, being very, very far off. I think digital fashion will become more relevant and important in our daily lives as well.
Hopefully it will. Thank you so much, sharing. Dita, do you have a final comment on it?
No, I surely agree with all that's been said. I think it's going to be very individually for each company, which one is going to be the first and what is going to be more ahead. I think generally digital fashion is probably going to be a bit more ahead, where some of the manufacturing and all the other stuff about 3D is going to be now or in close future.
Thank you so much. Didi, what potential and challenges do you see in 3D?
Oh, a lot. No, I think the biggest challenge that I experience is that we are going to change something that's already working. It might not be the most effective way we're doing stuff right now, but it works. So going in and saying, now you have to change to 3D and you have to spend money on it, you have to spend time on it. You can't get any people who really is educated within this. It's kind of a difficult topic right now, because even as a company, if you want to do it, it's a big change, and you can't really get people, and you really you have to have employees who want to learn this, because you kind of need to really be interested in 3D to be able to learn it as well. And if the way they're working right now is comfy and it works, why change it? So I think that's one of the biggest challenges within 3D.
It is to change their mindset about it.
Yeah, and I think the potential is very much in the way that we can be transparent and the way that we can use data in our workflow and use more workflow that are automatic created.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. Christina, what do you see as the potential and challenges within 3D?
I was waiting for this question. But yeah, I have to say that I totally agree with Dita about that part. Actually, what she was saying is like this mindset management changing. That's extremely difficult, especially if the company already has the way they work, and then suddenly you are like bringing something new. It's like, like it's like a big deal for a lot of companies, which it is. It is a big deal. It's not something that I think that implementing 3D is not easy way to go. If you look at that easy way to go, then probably you're going to waste a lot of money and you're not going to have any results. But you need to work on this. It's educational. It's a long-term investment. Everyone has to get into that world that this is how it's going to be. Salespeople, not just designers, buyers, everyone in the company. And the lack of resources nowadays is definitely one of the things where to find the good people, where to find someone who knows a bit more than others and have more knowledge and skills about that. And scalability, which is kind of leading to automation in a way. I think scalability is a biggest challenge, because if you want to be extremely efficient, especially as a big company, you need to be scalable. But scaling is not easy because you need a lot of investments. You need resources, you need a lot of things. And that's definitely one of the biggest challenges. But potentials are everything else. In design process, where you can cut down salesman samples, you can cut down protos. Also marketing, you can make a really good showcase videos and really be featured everywhere, because you make something really cool and different. E-commerce, where you can render image and just post online instead of waiting to take a picture of that garment. Technically the whole value chain you can use in each segment and department 3D. So definitely.
I think it's some very good points you just stated, so thank you so much. Sharon, do you have a final comment on potential and challenges?
I mean, maybe let's starting with the challenge, and just to add on all the things that we already said. I think skill set is definitely something that is a bit new, and that's also maybe a challenge to define the roles that are actually needed in, well, any process really, because you have the traditional setup of maybe pattern maker, designer, the supplier, marketing person. And then all of a sudden, potentially you need a mix of all of that. So if you want somebody to work in 3D fashion, they need mostly pattern making knowledge, at least knowledge to work with that, be able to design, but also use quite technical tools. Then when it goes into rendering, all of a sudden you become the photographer. So it's really a mix. And of course you can also divide that depending on the size of your company. But it's simply very new skill sets. And I think it's very important to be open to that, and also be ready to fail and try again, not trying to change everything at a time, but just scale it up with time and really identify where the low-hanging fruits are, basically. And with regards to finding the right resources, I think it's always good to also look cross-industry, because regarding technology or 3D, especially in other industries, gaming, automotive, filming industry, they are more advanced, often also simply because the production of products is more cost intense, mostly than fashion pieces. So they have started much earlier, so it might be worth looking at that. And at the same time, yeah, I hope that there is a lot of change already happen also in the education system. I still teach a little bit on the side, not as much as I used to, but students are really eager to learn, and a lot of universities, as I said, they are changing also their curriculum, but it takes time. However, at the same time, I'm really happy to see also that the software providers themselves, like they put a lot of effort in providing these learning platforms. So I'm happy for everyone who starts with 3D now or recently, because there's really good material to learn. I still I teach myself new things all the time, also a lot just online. And it is possible. It's just a matter of being also open for it.
Thank you so much, Sharon. We're running out of time now. I think we have touched upon some good points, and hopefully you have a better understanding of how 3D specialists and supervisors work with digital fashion and 3D. We have 1 minute left. Do any of you have a question in regard to any of the topics that we have been talking about today?
We have 15 minutes left.
Oh.
So no worries, we have enough time for
We have plenty of
questions.
time for questions. Oh, thank you so much, Alex.
No worries.
Maybe it's because the lights went off and I'm just confused here. Thank you so much.
No, it's been an amazing conversation.
If I have time, sorry. I don't know
We
if
have plenty of time.
On the last topic thing.
Do you? Sorry, I didn't.
I want to add something. Just a few more points, like quickly. I will be.
Yes, please.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Like a good idea. She mentioned 2D patterns and that not every designer understands 2D patterns and construction of the garments, and that's so true. But that's, I think, why it's very important for the companies to be realistic as well. And this is the resources thing, because sometimes they're relying so much on their resources inside the company that they don't see anything else what's coming up in the market. So I think it's very important to be realistic. Can your designer do this? If not, then you need to find a pattern maker who can do it. And then you combine knowledge of pattern maker and design. And also one more thing is that if any brand wants to implement 3D, I will at least suggest start small. Like use on news products or small collection that you already know. Start small. You can never make mistake when you start small. If you start big, you can crash really fast. That's all.
Thank you so much, Christina. In terms of sustainability, do you think that organizations within the fashion industry will look more into digital fashion because of the sustainable aspects that it can open up for?
I think they have to. I mean, for both worlds, the physical world where production is involved, they have to look at digital tools to also remain competitive simply, and involve their consumers, know their consumers with visual assets that they can have much earlier than intended. But at the same time, looking at digital only fashion, they also have to, not only because of sustainability aspects, but also because of the new consumers, the Gen Zs, the millennials, they were born with a phone in their hand, basically. So for them, it's completely natural to think of them being dressed digitally only. Of course, they're going to invest in adorning their digital avatar. That's absolutely logic, because they are so used to that. So all brands will have to provide an offer to this consumer group, I think. Otherwise, they might risk to sort of lose the connection to that part of their consumers.
Yeah, thank you. Christina or Dita, do you have any comment on sustainability-wise?
Yeah, I think also that the company should look into this, but I do understand if they don't know right now how they're going to actually make money of this, because if they can't do that don't make any sense for them to go in this area. And it's also, as said earlier, it might be something in the future. So right now it's more comfortable to just look at 3D within the design process, and then they are ready to do digital fashion when that's hits their customer group. But no doubt that we're going to see a big jump in the generation who's born as native digital. So they have to do it at some point, but it has to be at the right point for them to also be able to actually get some value from it.
Yeah, good point. Thank you so much, Tite.
And I can just add that I think that brands first needs to define what is sustainability for them.
Yeah.
Because we're all talking sustainable this, sustainable that, and apparently everything is sustainable nowadays, which is not. So I think they should say, this is my definition of sustainability, and start following that instead of vice versa, so to say.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, Christina. So due to COVID-19, it's been very strict in terms of how we've been able to meet and to visit stores and so on. Do you think that COVID-19 would change or at least make organizations transform into becoming more digital and implement more 3D models and maybe step into digital fashion because of COVID-19?
I don't think they're going to push into digital fashion, but also talking about digital fashion is something else than talking about 3D and the value chain. I don't think that COVID is the reason why people started to do this. It's just really pushed on maybe going 5 years ahead in this innovation of doing this. So I do understand if companies is thinking that they are busy or they feel left out of this innovation because it's been going so fast. But we can see now that it's not actually going that fast. There's still plenty of time to take this slow and to do it the best way instead of just jumping into something too fast.
Good point. Thank you, Dita. Christina or Sharon?
Yeah, I also agree with Dita that COVID-19 has been an accelerator for 3D as well as digital fashion. I mean, thinking about normal traditional processes in a lot of the in a lot of companies, business trips to Asia also are standard procedure, which were, for example, not possible. So, of course, you can find a way and to do so via maybe WebEx or anything. But again, having a medium that is much more easily to understand than maybe a drawing that leaves room for interpretation. And yeah, a lot of other reasons, I would say, but it has definitely been accelerating that. But the industry already pre-COVID had been, from my perspective and my experience, been investing heavily in it over the last 3 to 5 years, much more than the 5 years before. So I'm happy about it. And for digital fashion, yeah, COVID has definitely been also an extreme accelerator, I would say. I mean, people at home, there was no option to meet each other, so obviously you turn to your digital identity, be that in a game or even these calls, even these conversations that we have now. I mean, digital fashion could at one point enable me to dress through a filter, for example, which I'm still waiting for to
happen. Yeah,
to draw my designs in there, but there's everybody had to turn to these digital tools. And fashion is one part of something that you need to express this digital identity. So it was very interesting for me to see like the requests in that area. To me also, they must have tripled or something. It was
I reckon too. Thank you so much, Sharon. Christina, do you have a comment to it?
I think they said it all.
Brilliant. So, Alex, have you kept an eye on the chat? I don't Is
Yes,
there any questions?
I've been looking. There's a comment about that 3D can help get control over the feedback. So I think that could be something interesting to talk about. I saw, Christina, that you were agreeing with that. Maybe you want to start with commenting on it.
Yeah, sure. Because this is what I mentioned before, because yes, usually, in the brands, you have standard measurements that you are relying on, which is totally fine. I think every brand should have a standard measurements to rely on for each size. But of course, 3D can give you this possibility to also adjust a little bit as well, those standard measurements. Or if you have a brand that works differently, or again, you want to start a brand that works differently, where you can do a little bit more. I'm not going to say made to measure, but even if you try to do made to measure, again, it's going to be much faster than it is without 3D anyway. So if you set up the whole system well, of course. So I totally agree with that.
Good, thank you so much. I don't
Shirin,
know.
did it?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have comments on sizing and fit and 3D and how it can transform or change.
Yeah, I mean, with 3D, basically, that's also one part of the transformation process, basically. A lot of companies have outsourced the pattern making and the size and fit maybe to Asia. So you would just communicate through specs or maybe sketches what changes you want. So that's also difficulty if you then go to 3D. And as a designer, I want to be free and just visualize my idea, maybe not create the production pattern. Who does it? So either I do it myself, or do I have to work with a supplier together? So I think there's definitely also a part where you can sort of get back the expertise into the company if that's what you want. But also in general, I mean, there is a slight shift to also getting production back to Europe. And I think 3D fits or sits in there quite well. And one part of that is definitely size and fit, because if all the pattern knowledge is outsourced to the production companies, and that could be Asia, then it might be difficult to integrate 3D. Like you have to work with a supplier. That's one option, or you get some skills and expertise back, and potentially even speaking about sustainability again, shift production back to Europe.
Yeah, good, thank you. Dida, do you have a final comment?
I think one of the things that are great with 3D and regarding the fit is that we are able to have the same model here in Denmark as with our suppliers. We cannot be sure that they have the same mannequin as we have, or if they don't have the Alvanon or any other standards. But in the 3D, we are sending back files with the same mannequin, so we can see the same thing and comment on the fit. I think, yeah.
Great, thank you, Dida. So I can see we have a few minutes left. Now you have the chance to raise a question for either Christina, Shirin, or Dida, or even all three of them. So if any of you have a question, please unmute and speak out loud.
Meanwhile, I can maybe recommend signing up for the talk tomorrow, because it's going to really nicely continue some of the things that were open today. We spoke a lot about digital fashion, so digital only fashion, digital assets, dressing your digital avatar. And we've spoken about digital for manufacturing, using 3D technology for manufacturing. And within those, we have a lot of different skill sets, right? So Shirin was saying you become the photographer, but you're also a pattern maker. And there's a lot of different things to know about here. And Crystal will be facilitating a conversation tomorrow around that. So looking into what are the different things here that need to be considered and the different skills. But yeah, if anybody has a final question, you also feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you from my side.
Yeah, in case.
All right, we have one question in the chat. So a question to all of the speakers. Do you think a global association of digital fashion designers is required to join forces in this new fashion system and avoid exploitation, which is already happening today?
Yes, I think, well, maybe I can start to answer that question. I think, especially with digital fashion, we have the exceptional opportunity to create something new, almost a new, either a part of the fashion industry or almost like a new branch. I think what I see amongst a lot of other digital fashion designers is that knowing the fashion industry, the traditional one, there's a lot of pushes to make it different and not basically recreate the same industry that is based on exploitation and with such huge environmental impact, but to make it different. So there's, for example, the Institute of Digital Fashion based in London, which is looking at such areas. There's different, it's the only one that I can recall as an institution at the moment. But I know that a lot of companies are really looking also at the resources they use. So not to outsource, because creating digital fashion is also time intense and resource intense, and not to outsource then anything that is required to cheaper production companies, or basically just to provide working conditions that are healthy, let's say. So I would say to the question, yes. And what I see is also that there is a lot of movement in, building up this digital fashion industry in a different and more sustainable and healthy way than the traditional fashion business.
Good. A clear yes from Sharon. Didi or Christina, do you have something to say about it as well? No. Well, I can see we are at 10 o'clock now. That means we haven't got any time left. Thank you so much, Christina, Sharon, and Didi, for having a good conversation. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with the 3D and digital fashion. As Alex said earlier, please feel free to sign up for the second and third roundtable if you haven't done so yet. And otherwise, thank you so much to today. Thank you for today. I hope to see you tomorrow as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
everyone.
Yeah, have a great day.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.